All right, so next up is custom markers. So this is a really common one because a lot of the time we don't end up wanting to use like the standard marker that comes with Leaflet or Mapbox. We want to have our own. Or in the case of Mapbox MapLibra, it might not even have that if we're using the symbol layer, which we didn't go over in too much detail, but we're going to touch on here. I believe we're going to touch on that. So we're going to go over a bit about how to do this in Leaflet, which has some nice tutorial stuff. And then we're going to go on in MapLibra, where we're going to introduce another type of layer, which is this symbol layer, which is a bit more advanced compared to the polygon, the circle, and the line. So let's dive right into it. So with Leaflet, it is a little complicated. It's not just super straightforward. They do have this nice little tutorial where they actually do it with some complexity because they have shadows along with the actual sample marker that they're making. We'll end up having to define like a little thing called an icon, and we're going to give it the icon URL, which is going to point to an image. And we're going to not bother with shadow URL because that's very rare that you'll actually use that. And then we have to usually tell it the actual icon size. And you have to give it in these kind of width and height things. But then once you actually have made this icon by using this kind of syntax, when you make your marker, you just tell it the icon that you made. So let's go in and see the example. So I've just done this little cat image because I think it was being used on some MapLibra example. So let's roll with that. So basically, in order to do this, the image itself is here. It's at this URL. So if I go to this URL, we're going to see this little image. And this is just a website called Place Kitten, where you can make an image. So if I wanted to make this 600 pixels by 600 pixels, it would come across as a giant cat. So in this case, it is just 60 by 60. So that's the size. We know the size is 60 by 60. So knowing that, we do this little L.icon thing. And this is pretty much exactly what they did here with the L.icon. The extend is just doing the same thing. You don't have to really worry about that. We could just do L.icon and have it look exactly like that tutorial. So if we just do that and we just get rid of this, and I'm just making it look just like that tutorial so there's no confusion. Then there's some options here, right? We have to give it the icon URL. Okay, so here I put it I moved things around a little. I made things a little extra complicated. We don't have to do it that way. Let's just do it like that. Okay, so we have this thing, custom icon equals L.icon, and then we follow along. We do the icon URL, and in this case, we do it with the kitten image. We do the icon size, which we know is 60 by 60. And then there's these other things, the icon anchor and the pop-up anchor. Okay, these are a bit confusing, and here I don't think I've put in the right values. The icon anchor is where the point is going to be. So if I have like a square image like I have with the cat, probably the point should be right in the center. But if I have an icon that's shaped like with a point at the bottom, I have to tell it to go to the bottom, right? So in this case, the icon size is 60 by 60. The icon anchor should probably be 30 by 30, you know. And let's see, I think it goes from the top left corner, if I'm not mistaken. We'll find out shortly. And then the pop-up anchor is telling it where, when the pop-up opens, like if you click on that marker and there's a pop-up, where should the pop-up open? You know, again, on a marker like this, you want the pop-up to open in the fat part of the marker up at the top, not the bottom, not the middle. In one like ours, where it's a square, it doesn't matter too much, like somewhere kind of at the top, right? So we might say 0, and then like maybe 10. So let's just see what this does when we load it. Okay, we load it up and there's nothing there. Do we get any errors? Okay, there's like some errors here with something to do with calling init hooks, which is kind of a confusing thing. So let's see. Oh, I didn't pass it in properly, the custom icon. So let's try reloading that now. Still nothing. Okay, in whatever I was doing before, the previous example, I had capitalized icon. I think I was using maybe something slightly different from here. I was using this farther one, this icon class, which is a bit more of an advanced. I probably just scrolled down and grabbed the icon, the full example, but let's do the simpler one. Let's stick with that. So yeah, that's why things weren't working right off the bat. There's our icon. Okay, so now if we zoom out, we see it sticks to the center of the image. It doesn't move around in a weird way. Let's try changing the icon anchor so that it's at 0, 0, and we'll see kind of what happens. So now when I zoom out, you can see that that little, it's kind of like it's in a different place all the time, you know, like now it's somewhere in France. And now it's kind of like, so it's this little corner here that's actually stuck to the point. You can see that part sticks. So that's the 0, 0 point. And if we now go 30, and we'll be able to tell where it's sticking to now. Now it's like the top center is what's sticking, right? So that means that we're going across with an X value here, and we're going down with a Y value there in the second one. So, okay, that tells us a bit about how to, you know, if we have a marker, like if we had a different shaped marker, we could set the icon anchor so it's pointing at the right place. You don't want to put a marker that's shaped like this, and then it just moves around all over the place. You want that bottom to be stuck to the map at the point it's representing. So that's how you use the icon anchor. You take the image, so with a marker, it's generally going to be half the width and the full length to get to that bottom point, right? So, you know, try playing with that, try adjusting it. If we press this, we can see the pop-up opens there right in the center. And actually that is a tricky part, right? This used to screw me up too. The pop-up anchor is not relative to that corner place. It's relative to the icon anchor, just to mess you up a little bit. So I actually have to put -20 here if I want it to open above the center. See, now it opens up near the top. Whereas if I just put it at 0, 0, you'd think that would open up in the top corner because that's what 0, 0 was. No, it opens in the center because it regards the icon anchor as the 0 point. Okay, all that's a little much, but this is all important if you're actually doing custom icon stuff. It's all stuff that can trip you up. But if you mess around with these values a bit, know that the pop-up anchor is relative to the icon anchor, and make sure this icon anchor is in the right place, you're pretty good to go. Let's try going to MapLibra. MapLibra is a little different. So here again, we're using the same image. This time it's got it's done in a circular way. We'll take a look at that. Now, what we're doing here is we're actually making a plane marker first, and next we'll do it as a symbol layer. So we're going to do it two different ways. If you're just making a plane marker, what you'd have to do is this kind of crazy thing where you make a div programmatically. So that's kind of, we haven't done that much in this course. We touched on it a couple very minor times. But there's this example here where they create a div using JavaScript, and then they give it a class name, they give it a background image, which is like kind of a little crazy for what we've been, the place we're at. They give it a width and a height, and then when they create the marker, they've called this thing L for element, they pass in the element that they created, which has this background image, it has a width and a height and whatever, and they put that on the map. So that's the first example that we did here, where it's just sticking it on the map. Literally, that's a div. So if I could inspect this, let's see, what's the custom, I called it marker, that's great. If I can control F, okay, so go down marker, and down here, if we are to mouse over, we'll see we're actually mousing over a little div called marker, which has a background image, a width and a height, some other stuff. Okay, so that's doing it just by using the typical marker way. But, you know, if you're just doing that, Leaflet does your job pretty well too. The more complicated way with MapLibra is to do it as a symbol layer, which is more advanced and gets us introducing the symbol type layer. So we've done line, we've done polygon or fill, and we've done probably something else. I don't remember. Circle. But symbol is another one, and symbol is one of the more complicated ones because we have this whole crazy list of properties that there are for symbols. If we look at the symbol section, it's really long. It covers icons as well as text. You can actually add text to the map, which I think we did in our very first example with MapLibra. But icons is what we're after here. And this one will allow you to add thousands or millions of icons at once. Because if you're adding them using these elements, you're adding like a little bit of HTML for every single image. And when you have millions of them, it will slow down the page or crash the page. But this doesn't do that. This adds them in kind of a way that jives with the map more closely. So There's a good example here from the MapLibre documentation. And if we go to it, it talks about, okay, you have to do this thing. You have to load an image, then you have to add an image, then you have to add a source and add a layer. So we're going to be going through all those. This video is going to be a little bit longer because I want to really hit this stuff. So we do onload like we always do when we're adding sources and layers. And then the next thing we do, we actually have to like preload the image into the map. So it's really, like I said, you're jiving with the system of MapLibre rather than just like sticking a div on top. So you actually have to give it this image. And as part of giving it this image, you do really want to use a PNG if that's possible. If you try using an SVG, you might run into problems. A JPEG is probably going to have problems because it's not going to be properly transparent on the sides. So really use a PNG, convert your image to a PNG using an online like SVG to PNG converter, and just stick with that. It's going to make your life easier. So load image happens. Then we have to do this little thing where, you know, it's doing a kind of fetch call. And then we wait for it to return. And one of the things it returns is an image. Then we have to do this add image. And we give the image a name. And then we load in the thing that came back from the fetch call. You don't really have to know exactly how it works. This part is just like, you have to do this. And this could load from your local installation. It doesn't have to, local installation. It doesn't have to be an image that's up on the internet like already, like this one is. So, okay, once we've added this image, now we can add the source and the layer. So we add the source as usual. We add it, we're calling it point. We just give it a single point in this case, whatever. That's not a crazy part. Then we add layer. And add layer here is a symbol type. And here for the icon image, which is one of the properties we have here, icon image, it's the name of an image to use for drawing the background. So here we give it the same name that we gave when we added the image, because it's basically now stored in the map in some part of the maps thing. And the map knows, oh, cat image. Yeah, I know that one. So if you try to put this URL for this, which might be intuitive, you might think, oh, icon image, I'll just give it the PNG. It won't work. It'll be like that image doesn't exist in the map. That's why we have to add it using this add image bit of stuff here. And then wait for that to get added to the map like we do, and then make our point layer with the icon image. And if you're loading multiple images, you have to do this. You have to wait for all of them until you start adding all of them. Sometimes it works that even if you load them after the layer loads, they still load in, but I would really say wait and make sure all the images are loaded in, because you're asking for bugs otherwise. So, okay, let's actually see that loaded. There's the big cat. You can see it's a totally different cat, but that's the one they use, I think, in this other example from MapLibre. Yeah, there it is. And the cat is added in there. And as part of all the other stuff, we do have stuff like icon anchor as well, right? And they have some shorthand stuff for it, bottom, center, things like that, which kind of makes it a little easier. And then there's just tons of other properties. Icon opacity. Is there padding? Do you want to rotate it? You could turn the icon. You can change the size of it directly, you know. So if we wanted to go here, I could go, oh, icon size. Oops. Icon size, and we're going to go 0.2, and that's going to make it 20% of what it was. So now when it loads, it's only 20% of the size, and it stays that. So there's lots of options to explore as you start using icons and text more. As I said, this is one of the more complex layers, so it's one of the ones that, you know, if you're going to be using a lot MapLibre, maybe go look for a specific course on MapLibre or Mapbox. You know, shameless plug, I have a course on that, and you'll really learn how to use this in more detail. But in the meantime, hopefully this has been helpful to get you to adding your custom icons in at least a basic way and improving your understanding of these libraries. We'll see you in the next one.